we arrive at a very significant moment in today's program. Our keynote speaker continues to lead with a vision focused on national development, infrastructure growth, economic empowerment, and improving the lives of Jamaicans across the island. It is indeed an honor to invite to the podium Dr. the Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica and Minister of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. I ask you all to please stand.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Master of Ceremonies. I'll be very quick. Thank you. I'll be very quick in delivering my comments and to get you your titles. Allow me to acknowledge Minister Montague. And just to be clear about what Minister Montague's role is, Minister Montague is the Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and his specific focus is on land titling, settlements, and we have just tasked him to work on the relocation and reconstruction exercise for those persons who have been affected by Hurricane Melissa. Minister Montague has taken on these tasks with his usual zeal, and I am seeing great results, and I want to commend Minister Montague. Of course, allow me to acknowledge all the other political dignitaries who are here. Minister Rhoda Crawford, who is your Member of Parliament, Mario Deans, Councillor, and the other members of... Did I say it? He took it very well. Mario Michelle. No harm meant or done. And the other members of the municipal authority here. It's good to be with you. Now, the NLA, as Minister Montague mentioned, is celebrating 25 years. And we have the Commissioner of Lands, who is also the Chief Executive Officer of the NLA, Charisse Walcott, and she is responsible for the administration of the NLA. Now, the purpose of the NLA is to ensure that the various systems that manage government land, but manage also the titling of lands generally, operate well and efficiently, but they also have a mandate to promote the wider formalization of land ownership. So in a way, in a sense, the NLA is an arm of the government that treats with informality. Now, I use this big term, informality. What does it mean, informality? I'm certain that Wayne Chen is going to send out a tweet soon about informality. But informality is a part of our custom in the country. Most of the lands that are occupied in Jamaica historically would have been occupied before the implementation of a proper system of titling. So It would have been, most of the land would have been occupied from colonial times onwards. And it would have been occupied through free villages after the end of enslavement. It would have continued into our early pre-independence period. And many of you here who are going to be getting your titles, you would have been inheriting land, technically, being passed down from your parents, grandparents, and you've been living on that land, but it was never registered in the Book of Lands or the Book of Titles, as Minister Montague says, right? Some of the lands that you have may have had a deed, some document recording that it was sold, or some document recognizing that this parcel of land exists. But it was never registered definitively as to who owns the land. Now, I want you to appreciate this subtle point. Not because you live on the land and you have been living on it undisturbed for how many years means that you own the land. It is the state, through our titling system, that gives you that right that you own the land. It's a point that has to be made. In other words, it is the public system of the registration of the land that gives you the right to the land. Now, somebody else could come and challenge you for the land, and you'll have to go to court to defend your right to the land. And one of the things that the court would have to look at is who has title for the land. If no title, then they would have to go look at possession, and then they would have to go and examine the history, and then they would have to go and get, as Minister Montague pointed out, a justice of the peace or some other person with authority in the area to say, no, this family lived there for very long. But I wonder if you see where I'm going. There are so many disputes over land because there is no formal titling of the land. For many, the boundary is that big tree down there, the river over there, and that big rock stone up there. And you can just imagine between the big tree, the rock stone, and the river, how people argue over whether or not the boundary is a straight line or it meandered. And that creates quite a bit of social tension. Quite a bit of social tension. And then, of course, when the land has to be split up even further, grandma and grandpa passed, left it to their children, and then their children had children, and so on the one family plot, you have about 20 houses, and everybody put one house here, and nobody surveyed the land to put in proper roads. It's one big confusion. But take it outside of the informal ownership of land, through family land as we call it. But let's look at people who just see a piece of land. They know that the man who owned it gone to England and he hasn't come back here in a little while. So I'm going to go on the land and I'm going to farm it, because after 12 years, is it 12 years? After 12 years, I can claim it. Undisturbed, obviously. A very important point, though. And then you have another set of informality that is emerging, which we have to pay attention to, and I think that this is very dangerous. there are persons who are abusing the system of adverse possession, abusing it, who are deliberately going onto private lands and government lands, cutting it up, putting on big equipment on it, clearing the land. One case has been brought to my attention where 20 acres of government land is being cleared, marking it up with red paint and dropping stakes as if they have a right to do so, and then sell lots to unsuspecting persons who are so desperate for land that they don't go and check the register, meaning they don't go to the NLA to find out whether or not the person who is claiming ownership of the land has the land, or go to their municipal authority to see whether or not there has been an application for subdivision. And we know that this is going on, and I have given directives to Minister Montague that one of the things that he has to pay close attention to is to ensure that government land is not depleted. Now, when I talk about government land, it's not my land. It's your land that the government holds in trust and manages for you. Because there is some notion in the minds of the people that somehow the government is trying to keep people from the land. You know, every government has to have a land settlement policy. It's absolutely important. When you look at the transformation of South Korea, Japan, other countries in South Asia, even in Africa, land settlement policy is absolutely important for economic growth. And it's not on the basis that you're keeping people from land and you don't want them to have the land. But the land settlement policy must be about orderly settlement. Because what is going to happen if a few people abuse adverse possession and make a business out of taking over land that they don't own? You think is a poor person going to get the land? You think you're going to get road and water and sewage on the land? You think you're going to be able to have modern living? Look at all of these communities that have sprung up informally. Lovely homes on them, many of them. And they're all coming to the government to complain. They want road, they want water, they want sewage. And it is almost impossible for the government to deliver these services after they have built these lovely homes and facilities on the land. I have so many communities that we have to be treating with, where people have settled the land informally, and it is a cobweb that you can't get through. When we resurvey, we have to be moving fences, telling people they have to go and take off a little piece of their house so that we can get in a roadway. It's very expensive after the fact to put in water and sewage. Garbage trucks can't go in there because the roads aren't wide enough. So in other words, the informal settlement of land limits the potential value that you could get if the land were properly developed. But I know the challenge. I mean, the challenge is you need your land now. You need somewhere to live now. And we are appreciative of that. We understand that. So if you notice the government's policy then, one is we are increasing very rapidly the number of formal housing solutions we bring to the market. And we're trying to bring it down to a price point that everyone can afford. And that needs to happen rapidly. And at the same time, we're trying to improve the efficiency of the formal registration and orderly settlement of land. These two things need to happen in parallel and very quickly. We need to build more houses, and we need to properly register and title lands that exist, and we need a very progressive land settlement policy where the government makes land available to persons for farming, which we are doing now through agro-parks. We irrigate the land and we make it available for farming. We make land available for housing developments, which we are doing through the HAJ and the NHT. And ever so often from the land bank that we have, which is not a lot of land, lands that can be placed on the open market at reasonable price for people to apply for through land divestment. These things we're going to continue to do and improve on them, because if it isn't done, then Jamaica will be chaka-chaka. When you fly over Jamaica and you look at all our parishes and you see the developments taking place, you see a chaotic development in many instances. And where there is chaotic development, you're going to have crime and violence and poverty. In other words, the spatial development, in other words, how you develop the land determines the quality of life that you will be able to enjoy. So it's not that we don't want you to have land to live on. That's not it. Take that out of your mind. We want you to have land that you can live on and grow. A lot of people get land and they end up becoming locked in because they can't do anything else with it. No water, no sewage, no proper road, no infrastructure. So land development has to be synchronized with infrastructure development, with social development, hospital, police station, fire brigade. It has to be synchronized with economic needs. Where are the jobs going to be? And therefore, the government is moving more towards planned development. And that is where you can have development that supports a better quality of life. That's the objective. So today, we do these ceremonies in handing over the title. Some people might say it's public relations. Yeah, it's public relations. But you see, if we don't do it, the same people criticize your work, the people who criticize you and say it's public relations. If you don't do it, they are the same people who will criticize you and say you don't do anything. So we have to declare to the nation everything that we are doing, right? Because there are those people vested in saying nothing is happening. So a lot is happening, and you are a part of the happenings in the country. So 124 titles will be distributed today, and this is through the systematic land registration process, meaning we didn't wait on you to come to us to register. We declared an area and said this area has quite a number of land occupiers, people who have had the land for generations. They claim ownership, but they don't have anything registered in the book of titles, as Minister Montague calls it, to say that they own it. Now, bear in mind what I have just said. Once your name appears in the book of title for a piece of land, you own it. Yes, you have to pay your taxes, obviously, but you own it. So there are a lot of Jamaicans who feel that they live on the land, they have lived on it for generations, they own it. Technically, yes, you're in possession of it and you have been using it and it is undisturbed. But to have real ownership now, to move to that step, get it at your land registered. So I'm urging everyone, even if you are not in an area declared for systematic registration, still go to the NLA and say, listen, I have my piece of land. I don't have the money to do it, but we'll find a way to assist you. I see Sharif's eyes goes up like she's saying, what? But still come to the NLA. We'll find a way to assist you. Minister Montague is very supportive of this idea of expanding the number of titled Jamaicans. And the government is always thinking of ways in which we can assist persons to get their titles. So today is a good day for the 124 families. I hope that this will improve your prospects and you can use this to secure loans, pass down for generations to come, and some of you might even decide to sell. So this is going to now give you an economic foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, come, collect your titles.
Thank you, Prime Minister Holness. Your message serves as a reminder that initiatives such as these are not simply administrative exercises, but transformational opportunities capable of changing lives and strengthening communities for generations to come. And as the Prime Minister just said, land development has to be synchronized with economic needs. And so I really implore this government's push to move from the informality that has been ingrained in our Jamaican society. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment many of our beneficiaries have been eagerly anticipating: the presentation of certificates of titles. The first set of titles will be presented by Prime Minister Holness to recipients of Greenvale and Migetown, followed by Minister Montague to recipients of Claremont and Victoria Town. Recipients, as your names are called, please ensure you proceed to the front. Prime Minister Holness? Yes. Okay. Invite Marlette Nation. Christopher Kevin Clayton. Andrea Rose Murdoch. And Joyce Iona Poison. Margaret Rose Nemard. In Thompson. Simpson.